Hello everybody, Anthony's here. In this video I've wanted to showcase the kitbash I created to detail my scouts. So now I want to switch into more of a surface mode concept inside 3D code, and I wanted to create a mesh kit that would help me to populate my designs with details which are pretty sharp and looking much better than what I get with voxels. There are 78 objects in total which you can use with any other modern application. Like here I have it in Blender, works perfectly fine. I've tested some of it with the ZBrush, not everything works that great, so feel free to try it out. Maybe more is pretty good as well in 3ds Max. I've recorded a little time lapse of how I created this guy, and it will come as follows. But go guys, check out the link in the description, download the kit and use it for your own fun. Hope it will be useful. And as always, there's a 3D code promo code in the description which you can use to get a discount on your 3D Code professional license. Alright, so I start with a predefined shape inside 3D code, so made it just for this test. And now I've picked all the symmetries, so to double X symmetry, and I'm displacing this top like fin for something I figured out would be like a little submarine. But there's a problem that unfortunately inside 3D code everything is kind of destructive, right? So if you're a Blender user, you can use this kitbash inside Blender, and you always have a possibility to move stuff around. I did a test concept just before I did the recording of this guy, so I kind of more or less know what I'm doing, and I'm kind of adding the protrusions right now. Not really, I'm not subtracting anything. There's some sensors, or whatever you can imagine. And I was adding all those stuff, actually all those protrusions were added on the separate layers, so I can still remove them, I can hide them and edit. I cannot do that for subtractive stuff, so here I'm subtracting, and it's kind of, that's it. I have like backup layers for this, just in case. But yeah, it's kind of destructive. But at the same time, it is pretty fast, so we can try all the variations. And then here I'm combining, I created a new geometry inside the mesh, so now I can put some kind of antenna inside of it, and I can work with the stuff that's been subtracted. Or if I want to punch a hole in that new port that I've created just a second ago, I can also do that. So was one of the most interesting parts that I've created, because it's got like a full vent inside of it, so it's like a double negative shape. You get a negative shape to cut it out, but also a positive shape inside it to still have the fins and blades inside of it. So you can just open the OBJ if you want to create something similar for your own use. You can open OBJ and check it out. So now just doing these holes for extra dots. So since it was just this kind of like design was just a demonstration of the kitbash, I was just adding a lot of mindless detail, all the holes and like plus holes and cuts and all that. I didn't really put too much thought to what they can do. So 3D code is quite fast when I was doing this custom cuts. However, it's really quite slow when I do these horizontal lines like this. So they can here it was like a relatively fast, but still usually I don't know why, but this is the buggiest, not the buggiest, but the slowest cuts that I have are these vertical ones. And sometimes 3D code even crashes when I do them. It can actually crash 2 or 3 times when I was doing a vertical cut. I think if you want to do the type of cut, like a thin, long cut inside 3D code, it's actually better to use the Vox layer, Vox extrude, rather than using the cuts that I have here. But since it was a demonstration of the kitbash, I didn't do any Vox layer extrusions to create any sections of the model, so it's all just cuts and cuts on top of each other. It's kind of cool when I have a symmetry. You can combine these like booleans together and you get a new shape, new design. So here I'm doing this 5 holes cut and it fails. So what I did, I had to go back and remodel the tips of the cylinders. So I made them, I beveled them down, and it allowed me to do the cuts. But every now and then you will encounter those issues when you cannot cut through, and it kind of does this weird geometry. And what I have to do sometimes, there's a fix when you just push the brush down, uh, and you just push it to the maximum depth you can, and then it will cut through. But sometimes it persists, and you have to change the geometry. I don't really have good understanding why it happens. Sometimes I open 3D code, it happens a lot. Sometimes it doesn't happen at all. So here I was doing a cut, and I think actually it crashed, and I had to jump and redo a few things. So I just paused it and redid a few things. So now I'm doing this kind of grill. So here I'm using these little corners to create a longer cut. All right, just edit a few bits on top. You can also cut with those like teardrop shapes. Here I did the cut with that, and then decided to remove it. I decided to do a cut. Spherical doesn't give too many artifacts with these cuts, but sometimes, again, when I do like this long shapes, it can create like an empty polygon, like it no longer be a proper boolean but a broken mesh. However, it's not that often. Usually, you can see I'm doing these nice little shapes, and they are all nice and crisp. They don't create me any issues with the mesh. So sometimes you'll see me switching from brush to on plane tool. So like right click and identify the plane where I want to put the particular cut. It's usually because if I just use like on brush tool, it starts to like angle the brush at this unpredictable angle, and sometimes it gets pretty annoying. So those guys, the triangles, and you can see I'm combining them together on the two axes, like top and down axis, on y axis, and it still cuts perfectly well, no problem, or like near perfectly. So here I was trying to do a cut inside the triangle, and I think he had crashed. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I think that was a bit of a tougher mesh way to be cut through, so it kind of crashed. So now I'm using the circles. Circles are simple mesh types, and I was able to puncture those circles inside the triangles pretty easily. I can see here, but something like a cable port was unfortunately not that easy to cut through. So I have these hexes, a few of them, and right, I just thought it was a little like artifact on the screw port on the screw, just because the brush was way too deep. You have to like lift it up a little bit and do a cut. You can also see that on the brush palette on my right, all of those holes, they have a cap on top, so they're all filled. All the polygon holes were filled with just like a blank plane. It happened because this 3D code doesn't really like if you have like just an empty stamp without a cover. It can create an artifact, and I've like spent a lot of time like playing around with the shapes to get a good understanding of how it works inside 3D code and what works better, what works less. I actually created previews in my Gumroad that don't have this top covers, and you will see them in a Gumroad preview. And you can, if you load the OBJ with the previews to the models folder in documents in Windows, you will get the previews that are custom previews because they have correct naming and all that. So I made this kind of vents in the back, and you can see I did a cut inside the vents. So they can be quite tolerable to pretty big cuts. I was doing cuts, on the different parts of the model. Before that, I was doing like large cuts. So it gives you a certain amount of freedom, but also sometimes it bugs out, and it's not always easier to understand why. But again, I really like the speed of it, and that you can do all this detailing quite fast. So see here, I did a thin long cut, and it still kind of froze my 3D code for a little while. So then I was doing this non-overlapping cuts, because when it overlaps on symmetry, again with these long planes, it starts to freeze out. So again, my aim here was just to introduce as many different shapes as I could. Here actually is a combination of these shapes where you create a new design, which before that I even wouldn't have thought of. But it was like interesting stamp, like could be a logo or something like that. So which I was thinking to leave or not to leave, but I think I removed it in the end. But I have a little overlap over there, and you can see it's a pretty clean overlap, no issues. Sometimes the overlaps can give you a little like triangle on the side, and that will look strange. So but usually it's pretty fine. So a few hexes just for demonstration, and I think I didn't like them, so I'll just use the balls. Just some pluses. So I turned off the symmetry here to punch out the holes without the overlap. And I was just trying to find a place to put the hexes because I still didn't put them anyway, and I wanted to show that I had them in the kitbash. Yeah, I was trying to put these guys somewhere, but I think I never figured out a way to put them, and I just left them there. So all of these brushes are, have proper naming, and they're put into in alphabetic order, so you can actually read the name and can understand what it does. It's not like a subdividable mesh, not sub-D mesh. However, you can drop it inside modeling tool of choice, Blender, Maya, 3ds Max, and do a subdivision. I did that for a couple models. I won't always work that fine, but you can get some results. I just didn't really have time to make it a proper subdividable model, and I thought that I didn't need that to be a proper subdividable model, but it turned out that it's actually not bad when you have a mesh with all the edge loops running in the right places, so we can always jump back, subdivide it, and maintain the shape of the object. Maintain the shape of the model brush. Another pretty complex hole. So these guys, they do require more uh, geometry. I think I actually failed to print that, to imprint it. So that particular brush, it worked on before, but didn't work out this time. Sometimes it needs more space, more polygons to cut through, like the fence. So yeah, it doesn't always work perfectly. I don't think here I just jumped into that layer where I had all the objects that were protruding, and I just cut out this guy. I wasn't able to cut out the polygons fully, so you can still see a few floating triangles. But yeah, that's really cool. Don't always do nice cuts. All right, I managed to do a nice cut in that hole with the kind of complicated mesh, so it's not always a given. And yeah, that was kind of it. So thank you all for watching, and download it. It's free. Just please don't resell it, redistribute it. and see you in the next video.